Good morning, everyone. A good Erev Shabbos. And as we do each week, we try to bring a Bitachon message from the Parshas Shavua. This week, Parshas Beshalach. So much in here that we could use to highlight the point of Klal Yisrael's tremendous Bitachon in Hashem and where it gets a person. I want to focus in on one point, and that is the following. One of the most difficult areas of our Bitachon, of putting all of our trust and our reliance on Hashem, is that we live in an abstract world where we don't always see often the Ribbono Shel Olam. We don't always see the effects or the events, the way that they unfold, to understand that in fact HaKadosh Baruch Hu has been running everything and guiding everything from beginning until end. And therefore, when a person comes to a moment of clarity, where they're able to see the Yad Hashem, the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so clearly, and then they begin to recognize and realize that if this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then there's so many other things in my life. Really everything in my life is Hashem. So even when I'm going through a difficult situation, which requires me to dig deep inside myself and find greater wellsprings of Bitachon to get through it, since I already saw the manifestation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in one place, I can then transfer that Bitachon into another place in one's life, and I can say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I trust in you, you'll help me in this situation as well. And this is Klal Yisrael as they are passing through the Kriyas Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea. They go through, which itself was a miraculous moment, which required an enormous amount of Bitachon to go through, and they did. They passed that test. And as they turn around on the opposite side of the shore, they look inside the waters and they see the waters closing up and drowning all of the Mitzrim, all of the Egyptian enemies who made their lives miserable for those hundreds of years of slave labor. And it suddenly says, Vayir ha'am es Hashem, and the nation, Klal Yisrael, they feared Hashem, V'ya'aminu b'Hashem, and they believed in Hashem, u'b'Moshe Avdai, and Moshe his servant. So the big question over here is that this is the first time in the whole story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, of the Exodus, that the pasuk mentions the word V'ya'aminu, Emunah, believing in Hashem. It doesn't say it by the makkah of chayshich, of darkness. It doesn't say it by the makkah of frogs, of blood. It doesn't say when they were running out of Mitzrayim, oh, finally they believe in Hashem. The first time that we find the words emunah, believing in the Ribbono Shel Olam, is when they turn around and they see their enemies drowning in the sea. What was it about this specific moment in the history of Klal Yisrael, in the Yetzias Mitzrayim, in the Geula, in the redemption, that brought them to a level of emunah? And the Nitziv explains in his commentary on the Torah that as Klal Yisrael turns around and looks into the sea, as the pasuk tells us in Az Yashir, some of the Mitzrim were drowning like kash, like straw. Others were drowning like rock. And others still were drowning like lead. Says Rashi, what is the difference between each one of these ways to die? Kash is the most difficult thing in water. It goes around and around. It splashes around from one side to the other. It thrusts itself in one place and another. It takes a long time to go down. And the enemies, the greatest enemies of the Jewish people, the taskmasters and the police that were the meanest and the cruelest of the Klal Yisrael throughout the years, they died the most painful death, a death like kash, like straw, where it's just being thrown around and around, took a long time before they died. Then there is the stone. Stone is something you put into the water and it drops down slowly, but it eventually gets down to the bottom. That was the enemies and those that beat the Jewish people through all the years in Mitzrayim, that they were certainly not as wicked as the wickedest taskmasters. However, they were not so nice themselves, and therefore their death was something that took a little bit of a time to descend to the bottom. And those that were like lead sinks to the bottom immediately. Those were the police officers and the taskmasters and the enemies of Klal Yisrael, who were the nicest to us throughout all the years that we were in Mitzrayim, but still the gezer, the decree was that they all have to die, and they deserve to die as well. But it was a much painless kind of a death. Said Klal Yisrael, as they see all of this, can you believe it? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is keeping track of every single Mitzri, every single Egyptian, watching over every single thing that they did, and He knows which one deserves to die a harsh death, which one a less harsh one, and the one who deserves to die the most painless death. If that's the way that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is watching over the Mitzrim, the Egyptians, Al Achaz Kama V'Kama, imagine how much He's watching over us. And He knows all of the details of our life. And He's going to interact with us, Mida Keneged Mida, measure for measure. He will award us when we deserve it, and He will punish when we deserve the punishment. Said Klal Yisrael, could you imagine how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu is involved in our lives? Everything that is going on is known, and everything that is happening is running from the hands of Hashem. And this filled them, V'yaminu b'Hashem u'v'Moshe Avdo. They were suddenly infused with a belief that they didn't have all of these months watching the Makkahs, watching the plagues, because they realized HaKadosh Baruch Hu is omniscient. He is omnipotent, He's all-powerful and all-knowing, and He does what He wants when He wants. He brings His decrees upon the world, and He takes care of the enemies. He wipes them away, and He allows Klal Yisrael to go into freedom so that we can live by Har Sinai and receive the Torah and become a nation. And this is really a way that a person can strengthen their bitachon when you begin to examine the events around you, the events that surround your life, and you begin to see areas where it's obvious to you that this is a gezerah min hashamayim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the one that is doing this. It becomes clear to you that the Yeshua, the salvation that you received, is Yad Hashem, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Or even the petch, even the difficulty, the nisayon, the challenge that you're going to, it's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you begin to see the Yad Hashem, the hand of Hashem in your life, so you are mechazik, you can strengthen your bitachon in the areas where you do not yet see Hashem, yet realize it's all the Rebbeinu Shalom, and place your faith and your trust and rely upon HaKadosh Baruch Hu to help you through this situation as well. Through the splitting of the sea, we are elevated. We were all elevated to prophets on the level or even greater than Yecheskel ben Buzi, who had one of the most fantastic mystical prophecies of all, the chariot, which is the chariot that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, rides upon in this world. And even the Shivcha Layam, even the maidservant at the sea, saw greater prophetic visions and images than that. And perhaps this is the idea that what did they see? What did they realize? They saw the Rebbeinu Shalom. And they realized that it's all coming from Hashem. And if you live a life where everything is coming from the Rebbeinu Shalom, then your bitachon is intact and it is strong, and you will survive all the ordeals of life with a tremendous connection and a devotion to the Rebbeinu Shalom, with the bitachon that fills your heart and your soul. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful Shabbos.